Hey guys, so here's how to do the rotation tessellation. So just like always, you're going to need some scissors, a pencil, you're going to need your template. This one we're going to be using a square. You're going to need some tape, and you're also going to need your paper that you're going to sketch it out on afterwards. Alright, so let's get started. So first thing we want to do on our square is we want to label sides that are next to each other. Adjoining means next to. So I'm going to label them A, and next to it another A. Then I'll go B, on the other side B. So we see how the A's are next to each other and the B's are next to each other. On step 2, we want to take one of my side A's and I'm going to create some sort of design. Remember, as always, we want to make sure it goes from corner to corner. I'm going to move this out of the way. I'm just going to do a random one. Maybe let's go like this, corner to corner. And then I want to cut it out carefully. Make sure it is one solid cut and you get into the corners for both of them. One solid cut. Let's get this one. Now the nice thing is, since this is just a template, it is okay if I don't stay on my lines exactly, because it's this that we're going to be tracing from. Now I'm doing mine on just some printer paper because I was able to print out my template shapes. If you happen to have anything that's a bit thicker, like cardstock, note cards, or even some old scrapbook paper, that can work really good for this because it's thicker and easier to kind of hold together and move around, tape together. All right, so now that I've got my A design cut, we are going to follow the center of rotation. So that's going to be this corner up here. So that means instead of sliding straight across, like we have on other ones, I'm going to keep this corner touching and I'm going to rotate it out and down. So the two A sides end up touching each other. So see how that's the center of rotation because it just rotated down and into place. Now I want to get my piece of tape, tape it in place. Now as always, we want to make sure our corners are lined up as nicely as we can. And we want a nice solid tape all the way across. There we go, corners lined up, taped, boom, A side is done. Now we're going to do that same process for side B. Now it does not matter which side you cut from. I could cut from this B or from this B. Really doesn't matter. You have a little bit more shape to do stuff if you cut from this side, but as you can see, that'd make a long, thin design. I could do something a little different on this side to make it more of a triangular design. It's really up to you. I think I'm going to go from this bottom side, so it's just like the one I did in my worksheet for you guys. So for this one, I don't want to go too crazy with it. What if I go a little bit smaller, like that? So this one doesn't quite go as far in. I don't know, maybe it'll create something cool. That's half the fun with tessellations, is you really never know what you're going to get till you cut it out. All right, so now I'm going to cut it out, one solid cut, going from corner to corner. Now, just like before, we need to have our center of rotation. So that's going to be the side where the two B's touch. So that means this piece is going to rotate around, keeping that center of rotation in the same spot, rotate around and up, and attach it in there. Line up your edges and tape. Make sure you line up those corners as close as you can, making sure there's no extra gaps. This will really come in handy later when you start tracing out your design on your paper. There we go. Now, if this happens to you like it just did with me, my tape went a little past my edge. Instead of folding it over, because that's going to create a straight line, I want to use my scissors and cut that extra tape away so I get back that original paper design. So make sure I don't cut any extra paper. That can happen, no big deal, just trim it off. And on the other side looks good. Okay. Now that we have our template, we are going to be drawing it out on the paper. So let's show you how that works. So as always, I recommend starting in the center of your page. It's going to be easier. It's going to end up making a cooler design if you ask me. Does not matter how your paper is set up in the beginning, honestly. Just start your first one and go. Now you can see how the better you tape, the easier it's going to be to trace because you don't have so many floppy edges. This is why cardstock or scrapbook paper can come in really handy for this because it's a bit thicker, less likely to fold and bend. So you really want to take your time, trace around the entire thing. Now you want to make sure it does not move while you're tracing. Get all the way around it. Make sure your pencil is being held straight up and down. Don't go at an angle. This is going to ensure that you're tracing your template exactly. Oops, my template just wiggled, so I got to make sure I line it back up exact. Oh. So we see how we got my template traced. Now, this is going to be the weird thing. In order to get this to flip or get it to actually line up with each other, they're going to be kind of weird. So you've got to figure out what spots really line up, what parts fit together. So I can tell these two sides flip and fit together. So I'm going to line that up so it fits in that hole, and I'll trace the rest of it. So as you go around tracing these sort of designs, really make sure you're lining things up. Take your time. Get all the little bumps exactly how you see them. Make sure that your template doesn't move, or else it's a pain to line it back up. That's why if you notice my left hand is always holding it down, kind of moving along with it. There we go, so now it's fit there. Oops. Okay, now I gotta figure out my next spot. Where else can it fit together? There we go. See how this side fits right in there? And you just keep going around and around till you can get this entire thing to fit together and fill your entire page. I'm going to work through this quickly so you can see what the entire page filled looks like. All right, so there we go. I have filled the entire page. Now what I really like about the rotation tessellation is not only did my pieces in my template rotate using that center of rotation, but the designs when I traced it did as well. So if you look at my design, if I start in one point, I notice there's a center of rotation right here. So this piece rotates. Oops. Here's my center of rotation. That's right there. Ha. So what's cool about this is not only does my template have a center of rotation when I rotated that piece down, but the entire thing has a center of rotation when I trace it on my entire paper. It's going to be up here in this corner. If you notice, this corner is going to stay the same. Rotates, boom, trace. Rotates, boom, trace. Rotates, boom, trace. So it gets that sort of spiral effect as it works its way kind of out and around. I like this one because it's not just going straight across in a row like so many of the other tessellations. It actually rotates in its design. So try out the rotation tessellation. So try out the rotation tessellation and let's see what you guys can come up with. Good luck!